It's been said that luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Welcome to the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast, where we will focus on all things hunting in the backcountry, not just in Australia, but everywhere that backcountry hunting is possible. My name is Tobias, and if you're a hunter with no backpacking experience, or even an expert, I would like you to join me as we explore gear, places, and technologies, hear lived experiences, different perspectives, and share the passion that people have for a hard-earned backpack hunt. I appreciate you being here with me as I try to increase the knowledge that will bring us better luck in the backcountry. Welcome to this episode of Australian Hunting Backcountry, and this evening I'm very honoured to be joined by a name that might be familiar to quite a few of you, and particularly to quite a few of you that have been hunting for a number of years, that might be around my sort of vintage. Chris Boon. Chris, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Nice. Thanks, Tobias. Thanks for getting me on.
So, Chris, we were having a bit of a chat before we started the recording, and I asked you the question about how long you've been doing this for, and your previous, publications in the hunting industry, slash exposure media. And I remember years ago reading articles that were written by Chris Boon in a number of the deer and hunting magazines. Yeah, you were able to confirm that was in fact you, that I was thinking of the right person. So yeah, for me, Chris, I've been a follower of you for many years, read many of your articles, obviously admired the hunting that you've done and been able to do. So that's, for me, that's why it's a personal pleasure to actually have you on the podcast and to be talking with you.
No worries. I've been around for a little while, I guess, and before social media. So that was when we wrote things. We wrote letters to editors, we wrote articles, and we did it a little different to social media.
Yeah. And we were sort of discussing a little bit about social media as well, and how it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So for you, this, I guess, transition from hunting and having to produce articles that were in print media into social media, how has that happened for you? And has social media dragged Chris Boon kicking and screaming into the 2020s, or has it been a natural sort of step for you?
I would say it's been a natural step. It's I don't mind social media because it's very image based, and I like my photography. Mm-hmm. So that makes that bit very easy. But I love writing as well. So I don't get to write as much, but I certainly get to put up as many photos and images that I've captured.
Yeah. And that is one of the advantages of social media, is that you can share the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So you can share your story through a number of images.
Yeah. I mean, in a magazine you can pick 2 and that's it. When you do social media, you can spread out the 50 you've got and put all 50 up as you wish.
Yeah, that's right. And you kind of compel people to look at them. Then
they're going to scroll through, and if they miss it in the first scroll, social media algorithm put it through 2 days later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning for you. How did you get involved in hunting?
Hunting as itself?
Hunting to start with, yeah.
From fishing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess I was probably 8-10 years old, fishing all the time, fishing anything kitchen sink, I reckon I would have fished in. Catch tadpoles. Mm-hmm. From there, rabbits, foxes, the slow climb. Mm-hmm. The pinnacle, of course, moving to deer hunting, and it's never grown much more than that. It's pretty much Sambar dedication.
Yep. Okay. And did you have a mentor or a parent that sort of introduced you to it?
To hunting, not really. I had a grandfather who grew up on the farm. We grew up farm kids, grandkids, grown there. Rabbits. Um, so that was my hunting. Um, and then the deer hunting came from Mike Harrison, Ken Pierce. I used to fish a lot in that area. They became like parents,
Hmm.
and so they were my mentors in the deer hunting. They mentored me from small game hunting to big game hunting, and I've never left the Sambar game.
Yeah, right. Wow, there's a couple of impressive mentors for you to have. You were very lucky to get
I
them
was
in.
lucky,
Yeah,
still lucky. Yeah, both of them. I still get to speak to Ken every now and again. So
yeah. And then the progression from hunting into backpack hunting, because that seems to be sort of where your passion kind of lies more in the hunting realm.
yeah, backpack hunting came. That was where it actually started. I didn't do fringe deer. I went straight from speaking to those guys, telling me you go to the high country, you get a pack, and you go out and you go and find them.
Mm.
And that's what I did. Um, I got maps, topographical maps, got stuck right into them. My mother was a backpacker at the time, and she said, "Oh yeah, when we backpack, we see them here, we see them there." So I, circle this, circle that, and then yeah, put the pack on and took a big, big step out there by yourself, and that's where it all started.
Yeah,
Yeah, never looked back from that.
yeah. No, it has a tendency to be addictive, doesn't it?
Yes, punishes the wallet, the social life, everything, but the brain. The brain just benefits from it. Just it's a mental health game. It loves it.
Yeah. You mentioned the topographical maps. I've got a collection of topo maps still in my cupboard, and they're probably 2 inches thick, the stack of them. Because before Google Earth, that was what we had. We used to have to get a topographical map for an area, pore over it, look at contour lines, look at north facing slopes, all that sort of thing, and then
I
hope.
think people could still do it. I'm. It, I go out in the bush, and even on the recent trip, I've got a topo map and I'm reading it.
Mm,
I'm not looking at my GPS, and GPS is not even turned on.
mm,
I'm looking at this topo map, following the contours, looking for a place to camp where there's water. I couldn't imagine doing it with just a GPS.
mm.
Just, I'd be printing out pages and pages of maps off Google Earth if I did, and I'd take that. But I would have to have something tangible in my hands that I can calculate where I'm going to be and how far it's going to walk to it.
No, that's. I think that's a an aspect and a skill in the hunting scene that is slowly fading. People are becoming more and more reliant on GPSs and the convenience of them, and even mobile phones. You can download satellite imagery onto your phone before you go away and have that at the ready. But I was in scouts and ventures and so forth for many years and did a lot of backpacking through that. So back then, one of the very first skills that we had to learn, and in fact you probably earned a badge for it, was navigating on a map with a compass. So
You
um,
start in cubs. You start learning compass work in cubs,
mm,
and then everything else from that, venturers, as you mentioned, rovers, everything else is just topo map.
mm.
Yeah.
The the obvious advantage of the satellite imagery now is that it kind of gives you a little bit more of an insight into what the vegetation is going to be like in the area, and because quite often I know, being a couple of states away, I would have to plan a trip, and I would have to have plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D usually. Because you drive into an area and start hiking in and realise that where you wanted to go was too thick or it wasn't what you were hoping it was going to be. So back out you'd come, drive to plan B, give that a go. Yeah, so that was So even nowadays, I still, even with satellite imagery, I still find myself doing that, where I have a couple of different options before I head down on a trip.
Oh, definitely. Before I go, you always you look at a map and study it, but you're going to Google, you're going to check it out, you're going to 3D it, you're going to pan, and you're going to see what's happened, because the top of the map, as you say, vegetation's not on there, and whatever is on there was done in 1984 or 1992 or whatever it was, so it's not up to date. And most of the Google imagery was within a couple of years, and if not, it'll show you what's burnt, what hasn't burnt, what's regrowth. At least you can see it.
So, outside of hunting, and you're obviously still doing a bit of fishing as well from your social media. Outside of hunting, who's Chris Boon?
Nobody. Outside of hunting, he is just hunting. I just have a normal 9-to-5 job, work at Beretta Australia in the firearms industry, and that's it. That's really it. I've got a partner. We live in the country. 3 dogs, which is going to become more, no doubt. And I love outdoor work. So weekends are devoted to, splitting wood, chopping trees, cleaning gutters, mowing lawns. I love that. I love the outdoors because of my static, stationary 9-to-5 job. And just live for hunting.
Yep.
It is actually me through and through. It's been marriages come and gone, it doesn't change. It's probably definitely a negative for me that I am that passionate and that dedicated to hunting. Small example, when I was recovering from one of the medical operations, I spent 5 months living in the bush, getting more and more information on wildlife, deer, birds, just everything. I took it all in. I don't not. I'm very hard to sit still and do nothing.
Yep.
It's got to be something more I can see or learn, take a photo of. Just overly dedicated to sambar hunting in particular.
Yep. Yep. And one of the other things we spoke about as well before was some of your earlier articles. You were hunting with a very young child on your back as well.
That was a way of sharing it with my son. He started at 3 hunting with me. He doesn't hunt anymore, unfortunately. But kids grow up, they do different things. And also a way of allowing me to hunt as well. And because I am so dedicated to the hunting, I needed a way, rather than giving him back, to the grandparents all the time, I needed to, do it with him. So we travelled around, we hunted the old 6 before he was 5. We hunted all 6 species before he was 5 years old. I was published in Wild Deer. That's me using or coping with modern society, is to take your child and let them experience everything that you got to experience as a child.
Yeah.
Show them what it's all about. I don't expect him to take it up in the rest of his life. I understand that it's more than likely going to go full circle, and then when he gets married and needs to go out and explore the world, he'll come back to Dad and say, "Hey, Dad, you remember when you..." Say, "Yeah, sure, no worries. We'll go out whenever you want." When you need a break from the real world, he'll probably take up fishing or something outdoors, riding bikes.
Yep. And I think I've got 3 children myself, and my youngest is my son, and he's very much starting to get involved in hunting. Always has been interested in. But now he's just turned 14, so he's really at that age and size now where he's quite capable of carrying, holding a rifle properly, shooting it adequately, and also carrying a backpack. So he's already started hitting me up about when we're going to go and do a hunt. But in terms of being a parent, I think that, and you're probably the same mindset from what you've said there, is that generational thing is something else that is we've got to look forward to. So it's not only bringing our son into it, but then the potential of bringing our grandchildren into it as well.
Because society is different, changes with every generation. But this generation of my children, early 20s, they've moved into a lot of computer-generated entertainment. So, sure, when they were younger, and that's, they came with me because that's what Dad took them to do. And then they went into, electronic media entertains them hours on end. And, they'll come out of that, but they're children. They grow up. I didn't grow up and do the same hobbies my father did, so that's, can't expect it for every child.
No, that the social media and access to it and so forth is a bit of a double-edged sword. We need our children to be prepared for the future, but at the same time, it kind of grates on me anyway, seeing my children sitting there on their phone for hours on end and scrolling and being far too connected to it.
Yep, and it starts at a very early age. Primary school, they start being connected to it. So I wasn't going to fight it. More, if I fought it, then they probably would resent it. So I just left it.
Yeah.
Let them come back to it when they need to, because they will need to reconnect with the real world, and maybe when they got married, and maybe when they've got their own kids, or maybe when they've got their first mortgage. Who knows? It'll happen that they'll need to reconnect.
So, coming back to the backpack hunting, then, when you started out, obviously you had those great mentors there. So I suggest you probably had a bit of a head start on that journey. But in terms of when you started that journey, what were some of the lessons, I guess, that you kind of learnt the hard way? Because we spoke about before that sometimes the only way you can learn something is a mistake by actually making the mistake and then realising that you were wrong. So what are some of those more significant lessons that you learnt at the start?
Definitely waterproofing.
Yep.
If something says it's waterproof, test it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to test it, put it in something waterproof, like a waterproof bag. That's something I learned very early on, because you pack a pack, and whether it was doing it for scouts or venturers or backpack hunting, you pack it, and it's essential certain items stay dry, like sleeping bags. When I started, I think we were all using holofill as the most premium product. And once holofill got wet, it was wet.
Yep.
And learned very early on that wet is not comfortable. Wet is uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Wet is not pleasant at all. You start resenting the whole situation. So don't let sleeping bags get wet. Don't let spare socks. Don't let them get wet. It's just, I keep things separated in my pack, in dry bags.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much one of the most useful things I've done, because water bladders break, rain, torrential rain like we're having in Victoria, it seeps in everywhere. You can be in a dry tent, and I don't know, the nightmare of the dripping sound inside the tent, that just means that stuff's getting wet that shouldn't be getting wet.
Yep. You wake up in the morning and there's a pool of water in the side of your tent that's somehow got in there, but it's there. Yeah,
it's there, and it can really put a wet sleeping bag or wet clothing that you have to wear till it's dry can really put a downer on a trip.
Yeah. And in terms of gear, what are some of the items that you probably started with as an entry level, and then realised that you needed to upgrade those fairly quickly? Like, for example, I always refer to the 3 Bs: boots, backpack, and bedding. And I always say that if you can get yourself good quality items in those three categories, they are probably the foundation stones of a good hunt. If you're comfortable when you're walking in, comfortable when you're hunting, and comfortable when you're sleeping and recovering at night, then you'll overcome a lot of the other obstacles. So for you, along those sort of lines, what would you categorise there?
I'd have to stay with your three Bs. It's pretty. They're the three, I guess, the corners of the pyramid. They're really priority base things. Boots, very important. These days I hunt with actually quite high boots.
Mm-hmm.
It allows me to pack in and pack out at the highest lacing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm actually hunting, I just only lace them up to sneaker height because I find they're too stiff and too noisy when you hunt with tall boots. But walking in, when you've got a weight on your back and you don't want to roll your ankle and you walk in or walk out, it's just nothing worse. So I use quite high boots. And the bedding, critical, because if you're cold and wet, you can undress and hop into your sleeping bag and you'll warm up, and it's not such a bad thing anymore being cold and wet.
Yep.
And a backpack, well, you're not going to go anywhere without carrying your gear in and out. So yeah, I would prioritize those three.
Mm-hmm.
People say tents and so on. You can be comfortable under a tarp. That's I've camped many times under a fly tarp. Even when I started, I camped under mattress bags.
Okay.
You used to put your queen bed inside a giant bag. I used to camp inside those bags.
Right. Yep.
Just take them out and just go bush and use the queen size mattress bag as a waterproof encompassment.
Yep.
Just those simple pleasures. I look back on and think, geez, that was good, and that didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
Like, it cost me $20 to go to the mattress store and buy 5 mattress bags and use them.
Okay, I've never heard of that one before, so that's interesting.
Yeah. It's when you start, you look at, it's all about weight saving.
Yeah.
So I didn't carry a tent. I just carried a good sleeping bag and a big waterproof cover. Yeah.
And how would you just sort of sleep in that like a bivy sack, or would you actually kind of pitch it a little bit?
I would pitch the top half. There's probably photos published somewhere, but I would pitch the top half and use it like a bivy, like crawl into it, just make sure it wasn't facing which way. The cover was facing which way the weather was coming in from. And
All right. That's a good tip, that one. Yeah, good. Good entry level item.
You can buy lightweight flies now really cheap, but back then a tarp was heavy and it was big, and they were only thing you would pretty much get was a giant canvas one or a giant blue one. Overly comfortable. Noisy.
Not a lot of the early sil nylon too. It was far less than waterproof. Sometimes you were, it was wetter underneath the tarp than it was on the outside.
Yeah. So, yeah, but we're talking now we're showing a bit of age, and we're talking 25, 30 years ago. It was a bit different to what it is now. A lot of the goods manufactured now quite cheap.
Yeah. No, technology's been an advantage in this space anyway, and a lot of hiking and ultralight hiking products, cross over into the hunting realm, so they don't have to be actually specifically produced by a hunting company for hunting as such. They can, be a backpacking item or a non-hunting related company.
Yeah. So apart from those three very important, one of the things that I've found over the years, which actually you don't buy, is fitness level. There's nothing that I enjoy more than actually hunting, and at the end of it, doing a seriously big day of hiking in or hunting, not being sore at the end of it, not having blisters, knowing I still put in 100%, but I'm not I'm not sore at the end of the day. I'm not going to wake up stiff and wonder if I'm going to go out again tomorrow. I know I'm going to wake up fine and I'll be out tomorrow to put in just as much hard work. It's one of the things you don't get to buy, but it makes a hunt so much more fun.
Yeah.
It's I guess the similarity would be to know you're going to work so hard and then tomorrow you're going to end up with a hangover, and every day that you're there you're going to end up stiff and sore, then wake up the next day. Imagine being able to avoid it. Just makes the whole trip so much more pleasurable.
Yeah. Yep. No, you're right. I know I have, I don't think I've ever done a trip where I've thought to myself, I trained enough for this. They'll always kind of, come out of a trip or gotten to a certain point in it and thought to myself, I wish I had done more.
Yeah. Yeah. So you combine that with those three very important items, you're going to have an awesome time. You've pretty much cut out all your major issues by about 80%. There's only 20% that can upset you, which might be your ammo doesn't go off or your scope gets knocked out, but everything else, you can run out of water or food, but everything else you've got under control. You've done the best prep you can do.
So what does a trip look like for you now? Because you recently posted on your social media about your return to backpack hunting, and I'll circle back around to the reason why you've returned recently. But for you now, what does backpack hunting involve? What sort of things are you looking to achieve? What are the areas you're going to? Obviously, you don't have to give me your honey holes. I'll get them off you later on when the recording stops.
Yep.
But
that's right.
Yeah. So, what's a hunt for you now?
Successful hunt for me now is to go in to an area, backpack in, and carry as much gear as I think, plus an extra day's worth of food, and to push myself into, say, an area that I don't think other people would like to have ventured. So I will go in and I will set up a main camp, and a lot of people might go, oh, but you're on the top of a ridge and you're going to have to get water. Well, to me, that's a small price to be able to be where I am. If I have to walk back 500 meters and back again with 10 liters of water, I'll do that because it gives me the freedom to sit on top of the ridge. I don't mind carrying 10 liters of water if I have to do it once a day or once every 2 days.
Yeah.
And then to hunt from that camp into spots I don't think people will want to have walked before. They might have gone down there because an animal's gone down there, but they won't have actually actively said, I want to go down 400 meters and then come back up 400 meters later in the day.
Yep.
Because those areas don't get the pressure. And you have to be ready to do the extra hard work to get to the spots that don't have the pressure. It's like your favorite fishing hole. You've got to walk the extra 50 meters that everybody else hasn't walked on that river to get to the fishing hole. You got to do it, and you'll be rewarded. It may not happen on the first trip, but you get rewarded those trips when you push it just that little bit further, because you're a little bit more prepared to do it, whether it be emotionally or physically. You're prepared to take that extra step.
Yep.
I guess that's it. That's what the trip is, and then enjoy that bit of the trip, and pack out. I always enjoy packing out and being not as refreshed as when I went in, but not completely exhausted and have to take a day off the next day from work. I like being able to just come out, know I've put in 100%, and then go to work.
Yep. So to achieve that, to go to those areas where you believe people aren't prepared to. Obviously, down in Victoria, when the gates are closed, that kind of increases that area because, people are majority of people are probably only prepared to walk in a certain number of kilometres from the gate. So for you, how does that planning start? Do you obviously have a knowledge base already of areas, but in terms of providing to advice for people that don't live locally and have that sort of boots on the ground experience, what would you suggest that they start looking at?
Are you talking about the country they should be looking at?
Yeah. So where would you suggest that planning should start for them?
Okay, so it really depends on what sort of hunting they want to do too, because when you look at a topographical map and where you should start, it depends if you want to be doing stalking or you want to be doing cross gully shooting.
Yeah.
For the stalking people, they'll be looking for mildly undulating, and say in the September, October time of the year, they'll be looking at the snow plains where the deer have come up from the deep valleys after the snow have melted. There's fresh pick on the ground. They'll come up and they'll start feeding on the edges of the snow plains in the little valleys just on the sides. So you'll be looking at a topo map and you'll be looking for something probably 10 k's or more from where vehicle access can be made.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start stepping into some good stalking country.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
If you're looking at cross country, you're looking at close cross gully shooting. You're looking at close contour lines, really close, and be prepared to, bust up a couple of antlers on your way, or drop down and have to find them.
Yeah.
But you have to dedicate, and some people talk about dedicating a day. I've done where you shoot one and then you end up sleeping with that one after you found it to come back out the next night. That's how it works.
Yep. So for you, is your preferred method stalking or long range?
Not quite long range. I do like gully jumping. So I like to drop down and then contour around and look from one gully to the next, just work my way.
Yep.
That allows me to do a bit of stalking and a bit of shooting at maybe 300, 350 metres.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So looking, then someone planning a trip, you're sort of saying you want to be looking about anywhere from about 10 k's onwards as a minimum into the country, and then identifying the topographical sort of features that you're after to suit your style of hunting.
Yeah, because I can tell people, they should go down where it's really bluffy and so on and so forth, but that person might be carrying a 45-70 and want to shoot animals, in thicker or slow walking, whereas that's not going to be suited. So, and the 10Ks, it's more of it sort of weeds out the high pressure that you get from day trippers.
Yep.
A day tripper's unlikely to pull up at a closed gate and walk any more than 10 k's and then 10 k's back. So it just avoids that extra hunting pressure. It doesn't guarantee success. It just increases your chances.
Yeah. Yep. No. Okay. And would you say that you take to do the style of hunting that you like to do and to access those remote areas, would you say that you take risks that potentially, I guess, could be dangerous or construed as dangerous? Like, are there parts of the country that you're going to access and steep faces and that sort of thing that to get to that area, or do you try and sort of keep yourself reasonably?
I don't think it's any more risk than I'm comfortable with. Let's put it that. There's a couple of times you get bluffed out, but I don't push myself past the bluff. I realise that I'm bluffed and I go backwards because I'm not upset to get to that point. To get to that point means there's less likely other people have been there. So even on the most recent trip, I passed up a big deer because I couldn't see a way to get to him if I did shoot him. It's only on the last day I figured around a way if you go around the back and come back over the spur and you don't get buffed out. But, I know that for next time.
Yeah.
I don't take any more risks. These days I do carry one of those SMS satellite messenger things. Not that it's so critical, but I do drop into deep valleys that don't have phone reception.
Yeah.
Whereas up the tops where you set up camp, you're a stalker and you want to do the snow plains, you'll find a fair amount of reception in the Alpine National Park.
Yeah, on my last trip earlier this year, we went into an area and I was actually upset that there was phone service in there, because then the temptation to, and it was good phone service too. Obviously, we were getting a signal off the ski fields, but then there was temptation to log into the social media and that sort of thing. But it's a double-edged sword because you can communicate with kids or family back home, send them an occasional message and so forth, but then there's that temptation there to be distracted by it.
Yeah, which you have to enjoy the trip. It's best avoided. Just avoid the social media. But that's that increasing amount of coverage that happens more and more, and hearing reports, the big phone companies are going to give us almost 100% coverage. It's going to be a challenge to get to the wilderness part of the hunting once that happens.
Yeah. Look,
as you said, you get upset about it, and I think that's part of the reason we go is so that we don't have that.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, in terms of double-edged sword, it obviously increases people's safety exponentially by having phone coverage.
Yeah.
So yeah. I guess it comes down to discipline then, doesn't it, to put your phone onto airplane mode and switch off and be comfortable that the world is going to carry on without you.
Yeah. Well, I think on the most recent trip I didn't even take a camera. I just used my phone for all the images.
Yeah.
It's phone cameras are so good these days that it's hard to justify taking a proper camera. If you're going for a hunt, if you're going for photographing, that's different. But if you're going for a hunt, you're carrying the rifle to do any other images. So
yeah. I spoke to a professional photographer recently as well as part of the podcast, and he said exactly the same sort of thing. He said these days, a phone, an adapter, and your spotting scope, you can get equally as good long-range images and videos than what you could do with a very expensive camera. So.
If I wasn't carrying a rifle, yeah, sure, I carry a digital SLR. But carrying a rifle, you're here for a hunt. You're not here to take pictures.
Yeah. In terms of your gear then, and working for Beretta, I'm going to suggest probably has some advantages when it comes to the firearm side of things. But in terms of other gear, if you're allowed to, I don't know whether there might be a conflict there with your employer, but are you allowed to discuss some of the brands and gear that you do use?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm not a set or conflicted in any way with what I use. Beretta supply my rifle and my optic on top of the rifle and the ammunition. Apart from that, I go for whatever I choose.
All right. Well, let's start with that one then. So, what's your rifle and caliber and scope choice?
Yeah, I've got a real love for the new Beretta BRX, which is a straight pull. I've got it in 300 Win Mag. I've had it for about 2 years now. So I prefer the 300 Win Mag over the other calibers because it allows me to shoot 500 if required.
Yep.
The scope is also a Steiner Predator 8 with a ballistic turret. It can, which I've set up to shoot to 500. And when everybody does their part, we can put 2 shots within 4 inches or 10 centimeters at 500 meters. It's there if I need it.
Yep.
And I really like that gun. It's, I'm not saying it because I'm a Beretta fan. I really like it. I've got a Browning, which I used prior to that, which I love just as much. So, yeah.
Yep. And I think from memory or on your Instagram, you had a bipod attached to the rifle as well.
Yep. Yeah. I'm a big fan of bipods. It's not any special brand that I'm aware of, but I'm a big fan of having it because I'd rather have it and not have it than what is it? Have it and
Not need it.
not use it.
Yeah.
Then yeah, then because a lot of the hunting I do is steep country,
Yeah.
and finding a rest on a rock or take your pack off, do all these things. It's just so much easier for me to flip down the legs and shoot. And they're actually really long legs, so I can shoot across a hill, 500 meters from one gully ridge to the next gully ridge without having to chalk it up. So I can shoot lying down on a really steep angle.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't shoot running game, so that sort of helps me keep things level.
Yeah. Yeah. Ideally, if you can shoot, particularly with sambar deer, because they do seem to have this superhuman powers to absorb heavy calibers when they're alert. So ideally, if you can shoot them while they're not alert and unaware of you, and naturally feeding or whatever, that always seems to be more of an advantage than shooting something that is running or alerted.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's why. Yeah. But apart from that, when it comes to the hunting part, critical parts are glass. I find glass very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I use Swarovski 15s on a tripod, and I don't carry them when I'm going down gullies, but I have them at camp. That's why I pitch it such a high altitude, 1,500 meters plus, so I can look into these deep valleys and see where I'm going to go. I can see deer, I can see game trails. I can pick all these things up before I'm down there, knowing that the deer are there. I can see rub trees, find a wallow, all sorts of stuff with good quality optics. And 15s I've carried them for almost 15 years now, probably, maybe more. And people say, "Oh, but they're so heavy," but they save me so much.
Yeah, yeah.
They really do.
Yep. And the tripod that you're using, is there a particular brand you're fond of there?
It's a Swarovski tripod, the carbon fiber. Where you can cut weight, you do.
Yeah.
And that's where I can. But I wouldn't go to ultra light carbon because then it shakes, and you've got to pay the price. It's a bit bulkier. It actually isn't any heavier, but it's a bit bulkier and solid. But it allows, even when the cold wind is blowing, you're a bit chilly and the wind's blowing everything else about, the tripod's solid. I can still look through it.
Yeah, yeah. Without a stable platform, you kind of lose that advantage that you've got of having the high-powered optics. So there's a real compromise there, and then you've got to work out what weight is going to and design is going to give you that stability.
Yeah, because you find a lot of these ultralight objects that you can purchase for hunting, whether it's a rifle or a bipod, tripod, they shake. They're not as stable as the bulkier item, but depends where you want to go and how much you want to use it.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously it seems to be proportionate that the lighter you go in an object, the higher the cost goes at the same proportionate rate.
Also true.
Yeah.
Also true. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you carry... Yeah, sorry.
And then the other binos I carry around my neck are Swarovski 10 by EL ranges. So
yeah, all right. That was going to be my next question. So the second binos are range finding Swaros.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had those for many years. Before those, I had Leica rangefinders. I just found once you have rangefinders in binoculars, it's hard to go back.
Yeah, yeah. I've got the Leica range-finding binos, and it beats carrying a separate rangefinder and so forth. I know there's a small sacrifice in the optical quality of them, but yeah, I think it outweighs it.
certainly. And your eyes, after so many years of hunting this, they can't really discern between old, or not older, but the lenses in a rangefinder versus the lenses in the premium. It's I think it's over 35. Your eyes start to deteriorate, and I'm well past that age. So
yeah. Tell me about it. I've had to start wearing glasses in the last few years to go hunting because my long range eyesight has deteriorated. In fact, anything over 6 foot now is getting blurry for me. So I'm very annoyed about that. But I have investigated some laser surgery, but I've got to wait for my eyes to settle down for the script to stabilise first.
Yeah, it happens. Not just eyes, knees, hips.
Yeah.
There we go.
So if you're carrying the 15 power binos, do you carry a spotting scope as well, or that they replace them?
They replace the spotting scope. I did many years ago carry spotting scope and binos and long range binos. I found what I can do with the long range binos with both eyes open is so much easier than searching a hillside with spotting scope. Searching with a single lens, eye closed, and sometimes they were 45-degree angled or whatever. It was so hard to pick up anything. So that's why the 15s.
Yep. I had a pair of 15 power Vortex binos years ago, and same thing. I used to take them away as an alternative to the spotting scope. But then I made the decision to upgrade to the range finding binos, and I needed a bit of extra cash, so I had to sell those and keep the spotting scope. But I would dearly love to go back to a set of 15 or 18 power binos as an alternative.
For me, it's easier to sit on a hill face and glass for sometimes 8 hours. It's easier to do with binoculars than it is to do with a single lens spotting scope.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's trying to have one eye open and one eye closed all the time is gets very annoying very quickly.
Yeah. Gets tiring, and when you're doing it for such long periods, because you've dedicated yourself a week or 10 days to backpack in somewhere, you are going to want to sit in certain spots for longer periods of time. So
yeah, I have seen some guys actually carrying a pirate patch with them, and so they keep one eye covered, and that way then they're not squinting and so forth. That seems to help a little bit. Yeah, so that might be something I'll try next time. So for this segment of Friends of the Podcast, I am joined by Josh Price from Alpine Accuracy. So Josh, tell us a bit about Alpine Accuracy and what it is that you're actually producing there.
Yeah, no worries, mate. So Alpine Accuracy was a little side business, I guess you could call it, that popped up during COVID. Like a lot of others, I guess that have happened during that period of time, and we're all stuck at home. But for me, it was more about just trying to make a shooting rest for myself that suited me, I guess you could say. As I found like a lot that I was buying wasn't really cutting the mustard for what I was after. So I got stuck into that, making them at home, trying to work out what I wanted to use, and seeing how light I can make them before they started losing performance, I guess. And by the end of it, I thought I'd made one that was pretty good. Started showing a few people and whatnot, and then it took off from there really. And it was now 2 years later we're still doing it.
So what sort of products do you have available for people, and what would the second part of the question would be, what would be the real application for them?
So predominantly it's shooting rests. Don't really venture too far as of yet. We do make them in an ultralight film. So the ultralight film that I've been using over the last couple of years is the reason why I got into making them. But I've got a 1.75 litre rest down to about 250 grams. So they are quite light for the size. And then for those shooters who aren't really interested in an ultralight bag, I do also do, like I call it a standard fill, which is just the standard polymer bead. That gets you at about a kilo. So they're the two varieties. I've tried to stay making something that people can use for the application of hunting, whereas I've tried to stay out of apparel and stuff like that. I'd rather just make bits and pieces that people can use for hunting.
I did notice on your Instagram there, though, you did have some pretty cool looking hats, actually.
Yeah. The boys talked me into doing a run of hats, so I have done a run of hats. They have come out quite well, actually. I'm always wearing one. Not now, obviously, but I was finding, even for my shaped head, a lot of hats didn't fit. And once again, I got the truckers caps made, and everyone with big heads brought one. So it was good.
So essentially, then, if someone's looking for a dedicated rest that they could use for shooting in the backcountry, something that's not going to carry with it a significant weight penalty, one of the lightweight bags would be the way to go, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. So the lightweight bags that we've made have been for that specific reason. 250 grams is a lot less than 1 kilo, obviously. And one of the things that we also do that I haven't seen yet is we make them in blaze orange. So I'm sure there's a lot of people like myself who have left them behind when they're out in the backcountry, and it's not as easy as just driving back to go and get it most of the time. So being that blaze orange instead of a camo color is easier to find, I guess you could say, once you set up. If you've taken the shot and the adrenaline's all high and use the fist pumping after you get the result you want, it's pretty hard to leave them behind when they're bright orange.
Yeah, it is easy to get up and leave stuff behind. I'm fairly sure I've left a few things behind. Nothing.
I've left binoculars behind. So
no, I haven't done
maybe
that.
I'll make a blaze orange pouch next.
Yeah. And look, I don't want you to give away your secret recipe of the 11 herbs and spices, but the stuffing or the contents of that ultralight bag, how did you get that compromise between weight and stability?
So during the process, when we were in COVID, obviously I had a lot of time to try different things, and I got onto a place in America that specialised in making ultralight fill for shooting bags. So I got in contact with them. I had a heap of samples sent over, and then it was literally I made 10 different bags out of different fills, different sizes, and it literally was just the process of elimination, trying to work out what I personally liked the most. I obviously shoot a lot of long range, so I wanted to make sure that I was light enough without losing any accuracy. And then the fill that I ended up going with worked out to be roughly that 250 grams. So it worked out quite well, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. I have done things before, like, use the top part of your pack, put my puffy jacket in that and try and use that before. And it's worked, but it hasn't always been great. Particularly with like puffy jackets and so forth, as you put pressure on them, obviously the air starts to seep out and then they, slowly move. So they're not the most stable form. So something like that I could see, be great value, and at 250 grams certainly is not going to hurt to carry it as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I've got a customer, he's brought 3 now for himself and his 2 sons. And he does a lot of pig culling in New South Wales, and he's pretty much got his strapped to his rifle by the molly loop that's on the bag. And he's shooting 30, 40 pigs week in, week out. And realistically, it's the reviews of people like him coming back to me saying what works and what doesn't, but he's putting it through the test and he's using it every day for that for that job, and he loves it. He can't get enough of it. So
yep, yeah, great. I see you've also got some pouches for some kestrels too. Are they still available?
Yeah. So I did a run of pouches for kestrels. Reason being, obviously, kestrels don't come with a cover. Mine's fairly scratched now, the screen, and obviously the screens aren't replaceable. So once again, I made some blaze orange covers for them. And yeah, I've got a few left still. Once again, it's all in production still with those. I'm trying to finalise them, but I still have a few left over.
Yeah, and obviously the thing with kestrels too is they do come in some earthy tones and so forth. So if you did put them down, they would quite easily blend in. So having them attached to a blaze orange pouch would certainly be advantageous from that point of view.
100%. I've actually had mine hanging in a tree and once again left it there. And then it wasn't until I got back to the car that I realised it was still hanging in the tree. So it's a $1,350 walk if you don't want to go back and get it. So once again, that's pretty much why I made that cover. I just wanted to make one for my own, so I didn't do that again. And then, just started making them.
Yeah. Okay. And any more sort of thoughts about future projects, products that you're going to bring out?
I've got a few ideas in the back of my mind that I do want to go with. Obviously, they're all Australian made. A friend of ours, she actually used to do a lot of sewing for Harley Davidson, and in COVID, that they also took a hit. So between me and her, we're brainstorming together of bits and pieces that we can do. But it's the same again. It's always like we want to try and do something that no one else is doing. Obviously, there's a lot of room in the market for any kind of product that you want to put out there, but you still want to try and be a bit different to everyone else. So we will try and do a few things this year. Can't really say too much just yet, but we do need to do quite a few prototypes and give them the run to make sure that they'll stand up to time, and then we'll slowly release it from there.
Yeah. Okay. So if people want to, first of all, have a look at what you've got on offer, where do they go? And then secondly, what's the best way to contact you to order something or purchase?
At the moment, it's just all straight through Instagram. I've found that obviously the easiest at the moment. We will be doing a website at some stage. So our Instagram is Alpine Accuracy. Pretty easy. And we will, there's only one, so shouldn't be too many profiles to scroll through before we find us.
Yeah, all right. And so people just reach out to you via Messenger and... So if anyone just jumps on there, they send through a DM, pretty quick at replying, and then same again, pretty quick at getting orders out. We can usually do them the next day. We've got stock in, so if there's stock there, it'll literally be bank transfer and then send me a receipt, and then I'll flick it in the mail pretty much the next day. Yeah, great. All right, and obviously I see on the pictures Tatonka pack.
Yep. So Tatonka came about. I was researching, actually at the time, just researching packs in general, and then I saw Tatonka in New Zealand had come out with this split frame pack, where you put a modular pack on the back of a frame, and the other hunting I do throughout the year, because I don't stop, I hunt all year round, is mostly meat hunting in terrain, thicker terrain, not steep terrain, but just thicker terrain. So I thought that makes sense for me to buy that and use the bigger pack when I go for high country, and just use the back pack, the frame bit, for meat recovery.
Yep.
And I have yet to give it a run on meat recovery, so we'll see how we go. But I liked the idea, and I think I'll stick with that idea.
Yeah.
It might be a touch heavier than other packs. You probably noticed I don't mind paying more in weight for something that is more comfortable or more suited for what I'm going to be doing. I don't want to have to compromise a pack by 500 grams if it's not going to do what I want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have it and carry the extra 500 grams.
Yep. I will come back around to the weight because that was of particular interest to me as well. But I don't know whether you've seen him, Thane Young, Rogie Productions on YouTube. I don't
pay much attention though.
Yeah, he's a brand ambassador for Tatonka. He's over on the North Island in New Zealand, and he will hike into an area, snipes a deer opposite ridge, then he pulls the pack off and just basically has the frame and a couple of essentials, and boosts over, grabs the deer.
Yes, I have seen that clip. Yep.
Yeah, butchers him up and then throws it on the frame and carries it back over, and then packs out. So yeah, he sort of got that system down packed, and he was part of the development and design of the system as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the clips that made me alternate from a regular pack, which is what I'd used for so many years prior, to this version that allows me to do what he did.
Yep.
And because as I said, I hunt all year round, so it's not just high country, it's going to do both. It's going to do the meat recovery trips as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. And your boots, you mentioned you like a pair of high supportive boots. What are you running there?
I'm running Mindall boots.
Okay.
I don't know the model of these ones. They will be replaced. This is I think it's their 10th year, so they've started to perish, but they've given me 10 years. So
that's pretty good. Yeah.
So, but yes, they are the Mindall high boots. So they'll be replaced with other high boots. They are once again heavier, but they allow me a bit more security when I am carrying weight, and when they're fully laced up, and then I can treat them like regular boots, just not lacing them all the way up.
Yep. And the your bedding system and I guess tent or shelter system.
Yep. So I don't use any name brand tent. It's actually something I got off Amazon. Because it had everything I wanted. It's got a sleeping compartment on one end and a large vestibule on the other. Now, in the past, I've learnt when you pack somewhere and it's raining and you've got a wet pack, you don't want to have to put that inside the tent with you just to have it protected. So that's why I bought this this larger, it's longer really, 4-season tent that allows me to put the pack still under the fly in the vestibule, but it keeps it away from my waterproofed zone, which is where I'm going to be sleeping.
Yep.
Also, this one allows me to cook in it, so I can, set the jet boil up, have the door open, and when moisture goes outside, It allows me to sit on a chair. I'll have to send you some images. It allows me to sit on a chair, sort of squatting down a little bit, but cook a meal without being exposed to the elements.
Yep.
So
no, if it's raining or snowing, being able to get away, get out of that weather and still function, like still cook meals or sit somewhere comfortably and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. It's can go a long way.
Yeah. So once again, I probably pay a little bit more premium in that extra larger vestibule to sit under and cook in. And even this trip, I stored some wood in it because I knew snow was coming. So I had wood stacked around it, kindling inside, because I can and I want to be comfortable. So.
Yeah. All right. And the bedding system?
Just a Stony Creek 900 sleeping bag that I've had for quite a few years. Now that I store everything in dry bags, I don't mind taking down bedding in.
Yep. Okay. And are you using a mat?
Maroka 30 mat, once again from a few years ago. If you buy good then, it's usually a longer lasting product. So
Yep. Yeah, there are definitely some products where the buy once, cry once principle comes into play and can be a long-term benefit in terms of financial investment.
Yeah. It's good if you take care of products like a sleeping bag. You leave it airing when you're not using it, and don't leave it stored crushed up. And same with the mat. They'll last a long period of time because you're not using them every weekend of the year. You're using them as a backpack hunter. You might use them 5 times a year.
Yep. All right. So those are the 3 B's covered off. Now, in your Instagram post, you did mention your pack weight was about 40 kilos.
Yep, 44 kilos.
Okay. Does that include the rifle as well?
Yep, everything in the pack.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
the pack by itself.
All right. So people would listening to that 44 kilos. I mean, I the last trip I did, I was 37, I think, with the rifle and water, and that was a lot of the reason was I didn't have my food dialed in properly. I took too much food, but I was taking a few other bits of gear that I was testing. But I also had the podcast gear. So the mate that I went in with, we recorded a podcast while we were sitting under a fly and the snow and the rain came down. But 44 kilos, a lot of people would hear that and wince at it. And I think my hips probably twinged a little bit just by hearing that figure too. What else is there for you that you're carrying, or why so much?
Okay, so there would have been heavy incidentals. Apart from those, the one luxury I do carry is a small chair, like a fold-up chair. So that's added extra weight. But I did take this sort of trip. I did take a solar charger for charging headlamps and phones because I was using that for my camera. So I didn't carry an extra camera. It was going to get chewed up with videos. And apart from that, my stuff is all heavy stuff. It's not this new lightweight stuff. Now, I like to be comfortable, and I've said it 100 times, but I'd rather carry the extra compared to yourself, say 7 kilos of gear. But when I get to camp, I'm comfortable, and I train for carrying. Like before going, I get as fit as I can, so I can get ready for that extra weight that I'll carry, but I'll be rewarded when I get to camp.
Yep. So
I don't know if there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't take again. There's stuff that I might lighten a little. I did take a day pack as well. You might have seen that in the video, because when I don't want to use my pack for my day trips when I leave main camp. I like to have a separate pack, so I took my regular pack.
Yep.
But yeah, things like bone saws and gun cleaning equipment, with rods, they all add up.
Yep.
But I've seen too many issues when you don't have those as well. So,
yep.
Clean your gun, fall over, you can run a rod through it and clean the mud out of it. Or you've got a big deer head and you don't realize that the thing weighs 4 kilos, but if you chop the skull off, it's only going to weigh 2.5 kilos. You don't want to be hiking that whole thing around. So a bone saw is a small price for those little things. I do carry a Swiss Army knife and a Leatherman, so that's a double up, but I like to have one on the hip and then one in emergency. So I do a lot of, I guess, sort of double ups, but it's a redundancy plan. I've always had issues with not having something two of in the past, so I do like to have, little things like that I can do two of.
Yeah. Sometimes 2 is 1 and 1 is none, depending on what it is. I listened to another podcast just recently, or a YouTube, and the guy was going through his gear list, and he took 2 cables. He even went down to the point of taking 2 charging cables for everything, because he'd had issues before with one cable shorting out or not working, and then not being able to charge his headlamp or whatever it was. So, like, I'll even take 3 headlamps now. So I'll have two main ones, and then one little sort of super emergency one, which is just one of the little, coin battery operated headlamps, and that goes in my sort of emergency kit. So as a last resort, I've at least got something. And more often than not, I've been away with blokes and had to loan them one of my headlamps because theirs is broken and they haven't had a second one.
That's always been a thing that I like to say to people when I've gone with other people. If there's anything you need, let me know. I've probably got a spare. I've always liked to say that because it's pretty much true. Like you said, you're carrying two headlamps. You're ready to have a problem yourself or ready to fix a problem for somebody else.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess you do it enough. You don't like to go what you would think would be unprepared, which is certain critical items you only have one of or no batteries for it because you think you'll be able to charge it up or whatever.
Yeah. I took a battery pack that has a solar panel attached to it as well on the last trip. And as you're well aware, the cold just destroys battery packs. So after using the thing once, it then stopped working, and there wasn't enough sunlight, or for whatever reason, the solar charger wouldn't charge the pack up for me. So I had another battery pack in there as well, which lasted a lot better. So yeah, things like that, like as you say, if there's something that you need a redundancy for, then it's often worth carrying the extra weight to have that redundancy there, that backup.
Yeah, as you said, like the way I think about it is that's my sort of backpacking, and if I wanted to do the ultra light rough backpacking, then I would have to accept there are some limitations as to what I would be able to do. So there might be some nights that I have to go without using a headlamp because it's not something that I plan to have extra batteries or another headlamp or, I don't know. It's hard to think about, but most of the things are double. Like small things are double. I take more Band-Aids than what I need. More, I don't know. I take a toothbrush and toothpaste in. Sure, if I'm doing ultralight, I'm not going to take those, but I want to be comfortable on the trip. So just those all things, they add up, and it's surprising because when I looked at all the gear on the ground, it was like, oh, there's not much weight. That's a kilo. It's not a kilo, but it does. When you put it all into one condensed pack, it does add up. This trip I took a rain jacket, a warm weather, like a cold weather jacket, and like overalls. So I had, when it snowed, because I knew it was not going to be great weather, I just put those layers on, and I didn't get wet. There was no Gore-Tex overalls, and you don't get wet wearing those.
Yeah.
It cost me a couple of maybe 2 kilos in weight with the overalls and the jacket and the compression size. It's not something you can really compress down, those things. But for 2 days it snowed and it rained. I didn't have an issue.
I guess that's everyone's got a level of discomfort that they're prepared to meet, and beyond that, that the more comfort you have, obviously the more weight you seem to have. So people have got to come back down to where they're prepared to sit at, knowing that there might be a night that they're cold and wet and they're going to have to crawl into their sleeping bag cold and wet to warm up, or if a big rainstorm comes through, they might just have to sit in the tent for that period of time, or try and seek shelter somewhere. Or that's I guess this is sort of part of the reason why I'm talking to people such as yourself, to give people an understanding of the options that are out there, and what sacrifices they might be prepared to make, and lessons that they can learn along the way.
So my level of discomfort and the sacrifice is the heavy 20k walk in and a little bit lighter 20k walk back out, which is probably equivalent for me this year, I think was like 4 hours, 4.5 hours. So I still had good pace, but it was a heavy pack. And I accepted the fact this is the price I'll pay.
Yep.
And I still ended up happy and went to work the next day. So.
Yep. And the chair you're talking about too, what sort of chair have you got?
It's hard to explain. It's maybe 30 centimeters by 10 centimeters when it's packed up. It's just one of those low ones. It's about 15 centimeters off the ground.
Yeah.
Pole one. And I use it inside the tent, in the vestibule in the tent, and I use it when I'm glassing.
Yep.
So but it's my, as I said, my little luxury item to stop me having to sit on wet ground or find a log or a rock to sit on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I have seen quite a few people carrying those, and everybody that's got one seems to love it and raves about it. And I've looked at them a few times. I've been tempted, but yeah, it's another best part of a kilo that you've got to carry as well. So
it is a kilo. So you weigh up, and if I was only going for a short time, if it was a 2-day thing, I wouldn't take the chair.
Okay.
But if you were there for more than 5 days, finding a rock that's comfortable all the time or a log that's comfortable, it's just so much easier. And as I said, it's inside. I can use it inside the tent, like the cover. So if it was bigger, then I wouldn't take it.
Yep.
It's small enough to use inside the little tent.
Yep. You've put that back on my my possibles list.
There's always a place to strap it.
Yeah. Now coming back to this trip, and one of the comments that you made on it was that this was sort of the first trip after a long period away because of an injury.
Yep.
So can we go back to talking about this injury and how that affected you and how it sort of removed you from the scene, and then the road to recovery for you until you got to the point where you were confident again to shoulder a 40 plus kilo pack?
So I had a back injury for 26 years ago, and they fused my vertebrae, and for a long period of time, instead of getting fit, I used medication to deal with the pain of carrying a pack. So I would, if I didn't have medication, I wouldn't have been able to do it, but I would have struggled to do it any time. Then in 2018, the injury flared up again, so much so that the medication, I was on some serious, morphine patches, put it that way, dissolve under your tongue stuff. And then it flared up so much that medication wasn't even working anymore. And they had to try a different procedure. So they tried a neurostimulator in my back on the pain after lots of testing prior. And they found that I was suffering from chronic pain as well as having the injury. Most of the pain was the brain telling me I had pain, not really having pain.
Okay. So
the neurostimulator told the brain that there was no pain to feel.
Yep.
So that happened in 2019. So I had a year and a half off work with that issue, and then the recovery. And I returned to work, and I didn't stop hunting. There was a period there during the recovery I was actually in the bush for 5 months, living in the bush for 5 months to, mental health, dealing with everything that was going on. You're not earning an income, which is difficult to do. So, yeah, that living in the bush helped me a lot then. And then went back to work, and I got really stuck into my fitness because I realized I don't have medication to cover up anything anymore.
Yep.
So, the strongest thing I take now is a Panadol, maybe a Nurofen, the worst case headache. So I don't do any of the medication that I had in the past. and I got really into looking after my physical health so that I can go back to this sort of pack hunting.
Yeah.
So pack hunting behind the gates, I probably haven't done in, say, almost 20 years. Pack hunting in the same area or pack hunting when the gates are open, probably stopped that 7 years ago.
Okay.
So this was a return to that.
Yep.
Where I can go pack hunting and not have to worry. There's some tracks there that I would love to revisit that I did do on medication with back problems. And I'll have to do that on another trip. Another thing to look forward to.
Yep.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this trip because it broke the ice, because I was nervous. Because it's so long. 7 years is a long time to not put on a backpack and gone for a backpack hunt. I know it sounds like a long period of time, but it wasn't a long period of time between hunting, because I hunt all year round.
Yep.
But yeah, when one of the things that got me thinking, hey, I can do this, was I was carrying out Sambar, and I thought, you know what, if I can do this, I can carry 2 back legs out, 2 front legs. If I can carry a 3/4 grown deer out, dressed, I can carry a pack. Why aren't I carrying a pack and going back to what I used to do? So yeah, that was. Then seeing other people who were in a less healthy physical state than myself, and they were doing it, I thought, I've got to go back and visit some of these spots that I used to go to.
Yep. So hunting was a big motivator for you to increase your fitness and overcome that injury and the pain.
Yeah, because once the pain had gone, I could enjoy everything, funnily enough, more than I thought I could have. I thought I was enjoying it when I was in pain, but when you take pain away and chronic pain away, you enjoy life in general so much more.
Yeah.
You're so much more active. You talk differently. You react differently to situations. You're not doped up, and you're not, cooped up from pain.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. Good.
Chronic back and nerve pain is just something you don't want to have, and you don't wish it upon anyone. It just unfortunately happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm doing now, my business is working with disabled people with disabilities, and some of those people are suffering chronic pain as well. So I see, your story sort of resonates with me, because I see my own clients, the struggles that they're going through and how it affects them and takes its toll on them every day. From the minute you open your eyes, you're in pain until the minute you can get yourself to sleep. Yep,
and then it's a vicious cycle. And even now, my brain recognizes certain movements, and my muscles will tense, expecting pain. And we're talking of 4 years of not feeling that pain anymore.
Yeah.
But my brain and my muscles still expect the pain when I do a certain movement, even though there is nothing. Yeah. It's just. It's become so engrossed in the muscle movement, the muscle memory. It's unfortunate, but that's how much nerve pain you get in your back. It's just, it's devastating.
Yeah,
debilitating.
Because that became a learned behaviour for your body. So it was almost a muscle memory, that when that combination occurred, you were going to be in pain, and you're retraining yourself to stop that.
But I did a lot of tests, and when I was going through whether I was eligible for this chronic pain device, and that's the sort of thing they found, is that my body was expecting pain. That's why they went down this path of chronic pain, and they solved it. But I was a shadow of a person then. I was a grey, because I was on so much medication. I was grey, just it was such a negative. When I look back at pictures now, I feel sorry for myself. You should never. I should never have been on that much medication and been in that much pain. They should have come across this fix sooner.
And even though you were still hunting during that time, the backpack hunting, or the inability to do that, because we spoke before we started recording about the benefits of mental health from this style of hunting, and that disconnection and that connection with nature, and like you're saying, it's not just about the gun and shooting a deer. It's being out there in that environment and being around all the other noises and activity in the bush. What sort of toll did that take on your mental health, or how have you seen your mental health improve now that you've been able to re-engage in the backpack hunting?
Mental health definitely improved, because a lot of it's a mental game, the backpack hunting, and the whole reason, I'll say, we as backpack hunters go backpack hunting is the adventure of it. It's not, as you say, the shooting. The part of it is the hunt, but more part of it is the whole adventure of the hunt. Whether it's hiking in there and hiking out, to say to yourself, you've walked that far with a pack on, or you walk that far off the road, as an example. Even that's an adventure. We got off the track here and we've walked 4Ks off track to this spot. Right? That's part of the adventure. So the mental health has been even more than I thought. I was good before I went on the hunt, and now I'm even better because I've experienced challenges to myself and conquered them.
Yep.
So it's always just that little bit better, and I'm sure future backpack hunts will be the same. There's certain places I want to go, or certain things I want to do, and I'll do those things. May not be the next trip, but I'll try. And if I don't do it the next trip, I'll do it the trip after. I'll keep trying, because that's the challenge, is to have an adventure that you remember every single time.
Yep.
So definitely mental health is changed by backpack hunting. Funnily enough, you can hunt all the time in fridge country, but nothing stimulates the brain to feel good about itself than backpack hunting.
Yep. No, 100% agree with you there, mate. You really hit the nail on the head then. That the word you used was adventure. It's not just about going out and shooting a deer. It's about having an adventure, and however that looks for people. And I know personally, I used to work in a job years ago that was significantly stressful because of the content of the job. And when I found myself out, I would plan to go away at least twice a year to try and do a backpack hunt. And every time I did, I came back feeling significantly better because of that. Yeah, adventure is an oversimplification of it, but essentially that's what it is. It was meeting the challenges and overcoming them, and doing things that you wanted to do because you wanted to do it, not because you had to do it or anything like that. And it was hard, but you wanted to do it. Walking up that mountain in fighting your way through blackberries and dogwood and all of that sort of thing. That's not an enjoyable experience at the time, but when you got to the top, man, you felt good about it.
It was definitely you can say it's more adventure than it is thrill of the hunt. Of the time that I was backpacking away recently, only maybe 2 days were spent seriously dedicated to hunting. The other days were spent dedicated to having my adventure. I went to places that I'd seen deer years ago, taken photo of. I went back to those places. Didn't see deer there, but I went back. I walked back down tracks that I remember being horrible. And this time, because I was so much more prepared and mentally, physically healthier, they were nothing. They were not these torturous, heart attack hills.
Yeah.
They were not anymore. They were easily walked by a person carrying a gun and a day pack, and not struggling, not sweating out. So yeah, I went to see those places again and just prove to myself and to myself only, that I've changed.
Yeah.
I've mentally and physically changed from that person that did go into those places 7+ years ago, and now I'm not that person.
Yep. Yep. I was going to make that very comment that you did just then, that it was kind of more about, a lot of it was about proving to yourself that the past is behind, and you're in a much better place now by the sounds of it.
Definitely. Because we shouldn't really need to prove ourselves to anyone else. Especially with the days of social media, and we talked about this earlier, everyone seems to be outdoing the next person or proving that they can do something. Well, really just need to prove that to yourself. And that's what I liked about this trip. Not because it was a solo one by myself, but it was, I can do it, and if I want to do it, I will do it. So if I want to go and visit, because there were some scenic things that I wanted to see that I've always walked past because I've been so caught up in the hunt.
Yep.
So I went to see some old, I walked further than I should have walked, but I went and saw some scenic, some of those old cattlemen's huts.
Yep. Because
I'm there and I don't have to do anything more for anybody else. This is it's a trip for me. I don't need to justify why I did something except to me. Yep. So if I want to sleep in, which I didn't do, but if I wanted to sleep in, I can sleep in.
Yep.
There's no one saying, oh, if you sleep in, you're not going to shoot any deer. But I don't need to shoot the deer to have the adventure. I'm here with a gun and I'm going to have an adventure.
Yep. I heard a quote the other day that our fear of failure is not that we will fail, but it's how people will judge us after we fail.
It's very true. And it is, because everything is so instant, with social media and with just contact with people in general, that's how we start to perceive people seeing us as failures. If we keep failing, well, then they're not seeing us as successful, they're seeing us as failures. And you should be thinking to yourself, well, that's one way. I tried again and I didn't succeed, so I will try again.
Yep.
So you should be looked at as courageous and battling, and someone who's got determination, not as a failure.
Yeah. And like we spoke about before the recording, that social media, the success, what we deem to be successful, is judged by us, and not because we're putting a picture on social media holding a big stag, or that sort of result that has come to be expected from people. That the success was the fact that you did walk in there pain-free and went further than you expected, and were able to do that and walk out after having seen and achieved the things you wanted to see.
Yeah. Which is exactly the reason you go, I think, on these things. As I said, we keep saying adventure, but it's also the disconnect from daily life, to that when you come back from being disconnected, that you reconnect, and you reconnect with vigor, reconnect with some sort of internal energy that says, I'm keen to get back, not to work maybe, but I'm keen to get back to family. I'm keen to do a dad thing now, because it gets monotonous. Those daily grind, daily jobs, when you disconnect and then you come back to reconnect, you are refreshed.
Yep. Yeah. And I always seem that there's been very few trips where I've been on the drive back. Obviously, I've got usually a 2-day drive to get back home. On that trip back, I am already thinking about the next trip and what I'm going to do differently, and gear that I'm going to change, or there's always that pre-planning then straight away for me. And so then I recognise that this has been well and truly worthwhile.
Yeah, it reinvigorates the brain for more adventure, for more, it inspires it to think about what you can do next time. And planning the next trip is just as much fun, really, spread out over, say, 6 months, but it is just as much fun as the trip going.
Yep. So, Chris, I'm mindful of your time. I forgot about that you guys are on daylight savings down there, so there's an hour difference for us. So I recognise that it's
right.
Getting on at night for you. Now you mentioned it before, the Australian 6. You've achieved that. You achieved it many years ago.
Yeah.
What was
funnily enough, one of the places I went to that I needed to go back to, in my head I needed to go back to, was the place I shot my first Sambar whilst backpacking with my son.
Yep.
So I went back to that spot. It's a bit hard to locate the exact spot after nearly 20 years, probably 20 years, but I did get back to it.
Yeah. So what are the future plans then? If you've achieved that, are you going to go back around the clock and do it again, or are there other things in mind?
Unfortunately, I am Sambar dedicated. It's hard for me to switch off from the Sambar, and I do purposely chase fallow in April and May, just to, once again, like with everything, you need a break, but maybe not from the hunting bit, but a break from particular species. So April and May I chase fallow. I would maybe chase hog deer again, but I have no desire to chase the other species. I'm happy for everyone else to thoroughly enjoy them. But I've done hard yards, and I'm happy to sit on my laurels with the 6 species, but just concentrate on enjoying the adventure myself with Sambar and backpack hunting.
Yep. Okay. Any other Australian species that you haven't hunted yet that you want to, for example, buffalo or?
Hunted buffalo. I would like to go back and hunt camels, funnily enough. I really enjoyed that. They're a big animal. Just difficult for me, where I hunted them was difficult hunting. It was hot, and it was shrubs, and they're much taller than you and can see you from much further away. And it's easy to get misplaced in that sort of country. And I liked that at the time, that it was a challenge.
Yeah.
They really throw it out there. You can hunt them over waterholes or driven by aeroplanes or whatever, but that's not how I did it, and that's not how I would do it in future.
Yep. Did you get to eat the camel?
Yes, we ate camel. It was good. Yeah.
Yep. I saw somebody advertising it. There was one of the other Australian podcasters. I think it might be Hunting and Beyond, but please don't get angry at me if I got that wrong. But they recently interviewed someone who hunted camel, and they have likened it to Wagyu.
Well, it's pretty fatty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, and overseas, have you hunted overseas?
Only Northern Europe, in Sweden. Moose, beaver. I didn't get to shoot all of the things that I wanted to shoot, so maybe I'll go back there. I only really have a drive for caribou in Canada, Northwest Territories, whatever it would be. That's pretty much the only species that I've got that I would like to go and hunt.
Did you say you hunted beaver?
Yeah, in Sweden.
There's half a dozen good jokes I could throw out there, but I'll leave that one alone.
Plenty of good jokes. Plenty of good jokes. But yeah, my brother shot one in the snow, which was a tough hunt for him. I went by canoe on open water, which is difficult to hit them in the head. You can't hit them anywhere else because they dive and then you never see them again. But my brother had a true adventure hunt where he travelled by skiing mobile and then skis to frozen lake and had to sit there freezing until they come out. That was one of those adventure hunts.
Yeah, right. Wow. Okay. So never been to New Zealand? Any Thoughts on going to New Zealand?
If I was going to New Zealand, I'd probably look at the whitetail on Stewart Island. That's
Okay.
something that would interest me.
Yep.
That sort of interesting. So that to me would be the interesting bit. Dropped off by a plane, and then the plane has to come back and pick you up, and you have to survive there for 7 days and hunt. And I like that bit. I don't have an overall interest in tahr and chamois. Nothing against people who do. That's why we have such a wide variety of interests. For those people, they like to climb the mountains and shoot them that way.
Yeah. All right. So you might have already mentioned this before when you said caribou, but a dream hunt for you. What would be your dream hunt and animal?
Yeah, that would probably be it. The caribou. That would be a dream hunt because once again, you're backpacking. You could say certain animals in Africa, but there's no backpacking and there's no wilderness to that. In a sense, I guess, not having done it, but I can't. If you're staying in a lodge, I don't see the same connection with being on the adventure than once again, flying in and dropping you off and, have to start hunting the next day. You can't hunt the same day and so on. I like that.
Yep.
We walking with a pack covered by flies and bugs and, that's the adventure part of it.
Yeah, I've seen some videos from people hunting up there and there's mosquitoes, just like this black mist around them.
That to me sounds like the adventure hunt that I'd be interested, rather than ticking the box and shooting something. It's the story that comes with it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. No, I think Africa is sort of one of those, for me anyway. It's kind of a later in life type hunt when maybe my body doesn't allow me to do the backpacking and backcountry style hunts, because it seems to be, and this is not a criticism at all, but it just seems to be, you're staying in a hotel style accommodation, in a lodge, and then getting driven around, and you drive around until you sort of find a species, or until the trackers tell you that they've located one and they lead you to it, and then you make your choice to shoot or not. But I have a couple of mates that have done Africa a number of times, and they all come back raving about it and wanting to go back and do it again. So it's definitely an interest and probably addictive as well. But yeah, I'll leave that one till later in life personally.
When you can get someone to carry the pack for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can get them to carry a rifle for you. You don't have to carry anything.
But I think that's why you and I, and probably many of the listeners, enjoyed the backpack hunting, is because of the wilderness, the aspect of carrying your life on your back for 5+ days. It changes the mind. It's another responsibility that you've got to take care of, and it's wilderness. Like, you can hunt Victoria solo, unguided, public land, got yourself a game license and the right rifle, you can go for a hunt. And you can go for pretty much as long as you like, as long as you've got food. If you wanted to.
Yeah.
If you've got enough food in there, you could go for a month if you wanted to.
Yeah. No, that was something we mentioned before too, wasn't it? The advantage of Victoria, in that we don't have to buy tags, we don't have to make bookings. You can rock up at the gates, park your car, and start hunting. And we're certainly fortunate in that regard. I know other countries have got other advantages as well. But yeah, it's certainly one thing about Australia that we need to appreciate what we've actually got there as well.
Yeah, I don't think. See, the other animals, many of the other animals you can hunt in Australia, you don't get the access to hunt them unguided, let alone on public land. There's very little of that in other states. In buffalo, camel, it's almost impossible. So
yeah, well, in Queensland we have no public land hunting unless you're doing it under under specific license to cull animals in the national parks or whatever. But all the hunting I do up here has to be on private property, so it has to be with permission, and obviously then you're on someone's farm, so that comes with other criteria that you've got to meet too. But down in Victoria, that the attraction is to just as we said, you just throw your backpack on and start walking, and you can go and get lost for as long as you like. And
no government saying you can only go here, you can only go there. They only do that for 2 months of the year, I think it is, from December 15th to February 15th. The rest of the time, you're on your own.
Yeah. All right, Chris, look, again, really appreciate your time and the conversation, and
no worries.
Giving
Not a problem at all.
Giving us everything you've given tonight. It's like I said, I read many of your articles over the years, and always knew they were going to be good articles good magazines when I opened the pages and saw Chris Boon's name in the index. So appreciate all that you've contributed over the years as well to the hunting sector.
No problem at all, Tobias. I'm happy to chat anytime.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I will definitely take you up on that. Get some directions to some honey holes.
Yeah, well, there's plenty out there.
Yeah.
You just got to be, you're going to be rewarded for your efforts. That's the thing. You put yourself in the extra 5Ks. May not be successful that time, but you keep doing that extra 5, you'll find what you need.
Yeah. Great stuff. Hey, thank you for listening in. If you'd like to contact me for a chat, pass on any feedback, or have some ideas for future podcasts, please reach out to me on Instagram at Australian_hunting_backcountry, or email australian.hunting.backcountry@outlook.com.au. For now though, please look after yourselves and your mates.